The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
Hello there. Obi-Wan Kenobi here, also known as James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan,
Jedi Master Plo Koon,
and many other characters in the world of Star Wars. You're listening to... Shh, don't tell. It's The Secrets of Star Wars. May the Force be with you.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, episode 215. Hello there, everyone. I'm Mike Creavey, a.k.a. Old Ben. I'm older now than I was last time I hosted because I don't even remember how long it's... I was looking at notes. I think the last time I hosted was like a year ago. I was on like 6 months ago. So for anyone who's new to the show, I actually used to be on quite a bit a long time ago, but my schedule's made it sort of limited availability lately. I haven't been able to host in ages. So pardon any rustiness, anything like that. I'm not anticipating any issues, but I can say I can't wait to unpack the first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew with fellow Star Wars enthusiasts, Robert King and Patrick Mason. Welcome, Robert.
Hey, it's good to be here, and it's good to have you back from the spice mines of Kessel.
That's right.
It's good to be back. The robots managed to revolt at the right time, and we could plan our escape.
It was perfectly planned. So, Patrick, how are you doing?
Oh, doing great. Thanks for having me here, old Ben.
Oh, it's good to be here. Yeah. So before we get in here, friends, this week, I just would be remiss as always if I didn't ask you to please be sure you share this podcast on Facebook or the X, formerly known as Twitter. Has there been talk of a symbol, like a Prince-like symbol for Twitter? I don't know, but something like that. But leave us a review over there. We'd also like to thank our patrons, as always, on Patreon, especially this week, Chad G, Sherry V, Barbara H, Michael Z, and Colin M. Your generous support helps us to produce The Secrets of Star Wars and the other shows here at StarQuest. So please consider joining them over at sqpn.com/give. So on this episode, as I mentioned a little bit there, we will be unpacking the first 2 episodes of the brand new 8-part Star Wars live action series, Skeleton Crew. And, guys, we've been hearing about this one for a long time. So now it's finally here.
At long last, yes.
Yeah. And so I want to share just to kick off the way I always like to do it here, just to give a synopsis, a little overview here. This is from Wikipedia. We were joking before recording. Is it Wikipedia or Wiki? This is Wikipedia, but we also have Wikipedia up in the browser tabs too for references galore. So, but in this case, I'm just going to read, since it's 2 episodes and they really kind of just the second one follows the first right on its coattails. I'll just share them both. So episode 1, This Could Be a Real Adventure. I love the titles here. Mm-hmm. And directed by show creator John Watts, written by John Watts and Christopher Ford, who I believe wrote all the episodes. I'll double check that, but they're definitely, Watts is it seems like the brains behind the show. So the description says, somewhere in outer space, Captain Silvo leads a raid on a ship. He's a pirate. When no currency can be found, his crew member Brutus incites a mutiny on the fairly modern planet of At-Aten. It's an interesting way to phrase that. We'll see later. Wim and his friend Neil prepare to take aptitude exams to determine their future. Wim implies that he wishes he were a Jedi, despite Neil's retort that it would be impossible. Meanwhile, truant students Fern and KB spend most of their time riding a hoverbike around town. When Wim misses the bus, he takes his own bike but falls into a ditch where he discovers what he thinks is a Jedi temple. He is found by a droid who takes him to school but is subsequently admonished by his workaholic father Wendell, who tells him that he needs to make up the exam. When Wim convinces Neil to visit the temple with him, with Fern, who overheard his claim, and KB following as well, the group finds a hatch and enter only to learn that it is really a long-abandoned starship. Wim pushes a button that activates the ship, lifting them away. Wendell can only watch in horror as the ship takes his son and friends deep into space. And then episode 2, way out past the barrier. And this one's directed by David Lowery. The kids meet the ship's pilot, an aging droid named SM-33, who does not realize that his captain is long gone. Super piratey. Can't wait to talk about him. Fern convinces him that she is his new captain, and he takes them to a nearby outpost as At-Aten is not on any map. The kids venture through the outpost and accidentally split up, during which Wim uses his lunch money to buy food, only to learn that his currency is considered very valuable. When he tells the locals that he is from At-Aten, everyone laughs, and they tell him that At-Aten is the name of a lost planet that holds a hidden treasure. A gang of pirates try to seize the kids by force to enslave them. SM-33 intervenes, tries to protect the children, but is quickly overwhelmed. Brutus has the children thrown into the brig. Down there they meet Jad-Na Nawud, I hope I'm saying that right, called Jad-Na, who reveals that he is force sensitive and has some usable knowledge. Wim, believing him to be a Jedi, agrees to work together so they can escape, with Jad offering to take the kids back to their ship as long as he gets to come with them. And so there we go. So there's the summary of the 2 episodes, because I said to these guys before we started, there's so much to talk about and different ways we could get at it here. So let me just get first impressions, maybe. Patrick, I'll start with you here. What'd you think of these 2 to kick this off?
I really enjoyed it. So this is one of the first Star Wars things that I've watched with my children where they haven't told me that this is dumb and we should do something else for the entirety of the watching. That they really don't want to watch it or whatever. So, we tried the Clone Wars a while back. We've tried, and my daughter was at least interested when we tried Rebels, but
okay.
Not interested enough to ask for it, but they have. Gotcha. They both really seem to enjoy Skeleton Crew, so it's captivating to the audience. I think it's trying to capture, which is it's more geared towards a children's show.
Yeah,
it's very enjoyable. It does have the typical Disney show, Disney children's show trope of the parents are idiots and don't know what's going on, which I thought was hilariously and really well done in this sort of workaholic Old Republic, New Republic. Don't really know yet until you get to the second episode.
Well, and I not to insult anyone in the audience whose name is actually Wendell. Please hear me that before I say that. But for some reason, it's spelled different. But something about the name Wendell, it's not as it's like one of the least Star Warsy names you could probably come up with. And I just thought he's so just 80s working dad. He's like, I have to get back to work. It's always so that yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Robert, how about you?
So much good vibes.
Yeah, a lot of good vibes. As I said before we started recording, the nostalgia is strong with this one, and it really captures. Not only does it capture that vibe of they've been saying this all along. We're going for an Amblin vibe. And it has very much that sort of E.T. feel to it. To the point where I was almost like, are they trying to quote actual shots from these, old Spielberg movies or something? And,
they did. They totally did.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not an Amblin fan enough to catch those, but I did catch a lot of the entire cold open to the first episode was almost shot for shot, quoting, the original Star Wars, aka A New Hope. And just there's a lot I'm a bit ambivalent about with the show because it is so much fun, but I wonder if it's going to be a dessert where it's rich and sweet and, it can get to be too much pretty quickly. But my hope is that, with this workaholic environment, this sort of subtly dystopian, Old Republic world behind a barrier that you're forbidden to leave. That feels like a seed that's going to grow into something interesting. The pirate captain from that cold open, who I think everybody I know thinks that is going to end up being the same as what's his name, Jod, the Jude Law character.
It just sounded like Jude Law. Like, I don't know. Like, if it is him, my only complaint's going to be like, you guys could have done some modulation with his voice a little bit more. I don't know.
Yeah, and
but we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong.
So, I mean, his character seems like a really interesting character to follow. I like the kids. The kids are doing a fine job. But one of the things that I love about Star Wars is that it combines that, that action adventure, pulpy, good, clean fun, sometimes not so clean fun, with a deeper sort of thoughtfulness about the world and particularly about spirituality, about the Force, and about, what is our place in the world and how should we move within it. And I'm not sure I'm getting that yet, but I'm willing to give it a chance.
Well, it's interesting, I think, because there's almost like this disconnect because of the way you just put that, you definitely have that. You're right, for sure that I don't even know if echo, like the famous George Lucas echo. Some echoes are more echoey than others.
Yeah.
And that opener is, and there's cool new stuff. Like I love the dudes like sort of rappelling out, right, to like manually grenade the guns, right? Like that was kind of cool. The idea of like, okay, now we're tethered to this other starship. It's going to keep shooting at me unless I go out there and blow up the turrets. So things like that were pretty cool. But then like it's neat because it's almost like this, like what in the world does any of that have to do with these kids? So like that jump was so fascinating because everything about the world. I want to get your guys' take on this, sort of spilling the AT-AT beans a little bit as best we can, but did you see that coming at all with the idea of there being anything particularly interesting about their planet? Because I thought the way they set it up, it's like I'm not paying attention at all to like their planet, in terms of it having anything mysterious about it. Like it just was, it seemed like at first glance, like it's just this totally normal, ordinary, boring place. And I thought that was neat that now they're sort of planting these seeds that no, there's a lot more to that than you realized. Let me jump back to Patrick, maybe. So what do you?
Yeah, so I think coming off the cold opener, because it is very much a Treasure Island opener.
Yeah,
because you have the deposing of the pirate captain that happens after the bad the bad fighting, and so then you go to this planet and you think, okay, now I'm going to get the warning, beware the cyborg with one leg, which is a Treasure Planet reference, which was also a Disney movie. So I thought that was coming. It never did until we got to episode 2 with the droid lurching as if he had a peg leg, and I was like, there it is. Yeah. There it is. There's the cyborg with one leg. But
who's also got one eye,
yeah,
like
one eye.
In
Yeah,
Goonies.
So,
yeah.
So. And so I think the rest of the show was primarily a Goonies setup. And in fact, when they go into the ship itself, their first kind of entrance, a lot of that is shot very much. It's Goonies. Like there's no other way to like there's no other like equivalency that you can pull from that. You could probably find it within Star Wars itself, but it was all very Goonies and how that went down.
Yeah.
I really love dystopian universes and dystopian societies, and I love it as a conceptual thing, digging into the thought process about, okay, why did this happen and how was this set up and why is this set up this way? And the further we got into it, the more you realize that's what you were in. And what I loved about it was like, you didn't get that right away because you're experiencing it from the vantage point of the children and they don't realize it. Right? They don't realize they're in a utopia dystopia. And it's only as you slowly interact with the father and realize he's never around, and then you realize the mother's never around either for Fern. Is it Fern?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she makes this comment, I'm just worried there's not enough places at the top. And then they talk about this exam that you have to pass to find your place in the order or whatever. And like the stuff they're teaching them at like, I don't know.
What contribution will you make to the great work?
The great work. Yeah. And you're like, oh, wow, this is like, I love that you're, and from the kid's perspective, it's, I have to get ready to take this test and do this exam. Like, this is the most important thing in the world. And there's no even thought process that like this is wrong. Like something is off. Like we're just slightly skewed in the wrong direction here. And I really love that. Like it sort of slowly builds into you over time over the course of the episode.
Absolutely. Robert, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was, like I said, I liked the subtlety of it and the way it felt like the best fantasies do. It felt grounded. It felt real.
Yeah.
And I agree. I think having the kids' point of view was great. I loved the interactions between the kids. Those felt real.
Yeah.
The mockery of the kids across the street. And what are you even doing? You know, the power dynamics between, I'm getting very strong Leia vibes from Fern and, getting very strong Luke vibes from Wim. And, so that kind of, snarky, I'm in charge here, combined with the, I have huge aspirations and I don't know what I'm doing. And I just love the dynamic there. I kind of like Katie the best. I think she's my favorite character.
Oh yeah.
I loved, when
she's subtle too. She, we don't know yet what all she's capable of, but she's got some wisdom,
She's got some wisdom and she's got the augmentations. It made me realize how little we see cyborgs in the Star Wars universe. There's like Lobot from Empire Strikes Back and then you get people like, Vader or Luke's mechanical hand, but you don't see that kind of head-based augmentation that seems to allow you to interact directly with computers. And I wonder, why does she have it and others don't? It clearly gives her certain advantages, like when they're learning, how do you fly this ship? And Smee is just going through.
Yes.
Like,
his name is Smee. Yeah. Oh, that was so good. Sorry.
I basically, my notes for tonight are just like a giant bingo card. So as we go, I'm like, yep, there it is. Because I was waiting for that.
And it was like 3 seconds. He was like SM33. And I'm like, 33. Smee. His name is Smee. Yes. Are you kidding me?
Oh yeah, there's nothing subtle. Well, I just said I admire the subtlety of the show, but there's a lot that is just plain not subtle about this show.
Yeah,
it's
wearing
its influences very much on its sleeve. I just want to finish up the thing I was saying about
sorry.
Oh gosh, no, I've forgotten her name. KB, is that right?
No. KB, yeah.
Just how quickly she picked up what SM33 was laying down. It's like, here. This is how you do all of these things.
And we're laughing, and she's like,
yes, that makes perfect sense. I mean, just so there's a lot going on beneath the surface with her, and I like that. I'm down for it.
Yeah, I think the only place we've seen similar cyborg augmentation would be the Book of Boba Fett with that rather silly biker gang.
Yes. That is also something I wanted to bring up, is how much cooler the bikes are in this show than in the Book of Boba Fett.
Oh my goodness. So much cooler.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's so interesting how like you said earlier, Robert, too, like where it's that's like the references. Like I love, like he's the first time we see Wim, he's playing with Star Wars action figures.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, perfect. And then, he's like, there he is. That's all, And then I love, though, that first interaction with Neil, that Neil's waiting for him. And it's almost the Vader quote of like, you should not have come back, but it's you should not be here or whatever. It's just like, but then like, how quickly it was such a great, like real kid moment where, they're fighting everything. And but then it stops because he has something in his eye, and I was just, he's like, oh, I just, and I did, by the way, Neil, I was double checking this. This is making a lot of, Star Wars, rounds. Apparently online right now, he is not the same species as Max Rebo. So they do look very different. The elephant nose thing is somewhat similar, but the eyes they're different. Are very different. They didn't specify what this is yet. It just says Neil's species.
Yeah, so. It never occurred to me that he was Max Rebo species. I don't know why, but
I don't think that was my first instinct. But then like somewhere somebody was like, yeah, no, he's like Max Rebo. And I'm like, oh yeah.
I think I thought they were related. But that's partly because when the Ugnaughts came into The Mandalorian, to my eye, at least, they looked really different from the Ugnaughts as they were introduced in Empire Strikes Back. So I thought, oh, this is just, kind of an updating of the makeup and effects.
The prosthesis or whatever, yeah.
So it seems, I don't know. It doesn't significantly matter to me, unless it becomes, deeply lore significant somehow.
Well, what's funny was that just speaking of species, quick, I'll throw this in there before I forget, but Brutus, who we can talk about more later, pretty interesting bad guy, the Wolfman dude. I said I can't pronounce it. Shishtavanen, something like that.
That sounds correct.
No. Somebody's got. I looked at it. I typed it, but it's like
Star Wars role playing game and had to pick.
Isn't that and it's that's right, yeah. But what's interesting is I was thinking about the he looked familiar, and there's so many species. Like sometimes I've seen all of it so many times I forget. Sometimes I was like, where was that guy? But it was interesting. Someone online was specifying that, and it might show up somewhere else I'm not aware of, but that I guess that was in the original Cantina scene, one of those many sort of things you just see a quick glimpse of that was just kind of out of some old prop closet. They were basically using what they had. If it's some old 20th Century Fox Wolfman costume or something, give it red eyes, we're good to go. But I guess I'd forgotten about that because they edited that guy out of the special editions, I think, in subsequent versions. So I don't know that you really see him in there. But someone was making a big deal of this, that this is like the return of this species. But it looks pretty cool, However, they're advancing this really ever since the sequel trilogy, this insistence on not just getting the CG good, but continuing to advance the practical effects too. I mean, was there anything else you guys spotted in terms of that stuff? That was just pretty interesting as far as the practical effects.
Is Neil practical?
I think he is. Yeah. I don't know if there's a little CG cleanup, but it's, yeah.
I'm almost certain he is. Because he just looks and feels practical, and it would not astound me if he was, given how far they've come. Now, I imagine there's probably two guys with remote controls, or two people with remote controls controlling his nose or his trunk.
Mm-hmm. His trunk.
He calls it a trunk.
The trunk.
Yeah, that's right.
And because they had 3 for Grogu, if I remember, or no, four guys.
I think it was 4, yeah,
with remote controls for Grogu. So I could see him having a team of people, and then there also being a kid underneath the mask, which would be a lot of work. It might also be a little person. I don't know. I'll have to look into that, but
it's a kid, I think. But it's and it's that's pretty shocking too. Just when you were thinking about like the. Because one of my friends going into this, the last thing he said before I watched it was he just said, I just don't know, we'll have to see how it goes. And he's, of course, he likes it a lot so far, but he was concerned, if the chemistry and the sort of just the relationship between those kid actors doesn't quite work. I can really sink it. But I thought they did a great job, the 4 of them as a set. But, 3 out of the 4 of them get to just basically be themselves with some makeup, and then kid, you're going to be an elephant. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Your head's going to be controlled by remote. Just like, okay. Yeah. But he's doing great.
I love the So, I mean, harkening back to the cantina scene, that's what we get in season 2 when they dock at the spaceport is they get their own version. And I love the fact that it's Neil who goes, "Oh, whoa, aliens."
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, that is awesome.
What were some things you guys noticed in that scene? Like, cause I think it's okay to jump around here because it's just, there's so much to kind of unpack as a set. But what did you guys like? Was there anything about that scene or that setting really that really jumped out at you? Because there were so many fun little things that they put in that like could be easily missed, but it just felt I don't know. It's just I felt I could appreciate, I guess is what I'm saying. I could really appreciate that they put it in there anyway because it fits, even if someone doesn't notice it. Like I think there's a guy like taking boots off a dead body or something. Like in the background and like this, all these, it really reminded me of like a nighttime space version of when, do you guys remember the Hook movie with, Robin Williams as Peter Pan?
Oh gosh, that was a long time ago.
Because when he first, when he first emerges into Hook's, ship and the whole setting and everything, his first experience of that, it was the chaos of it, like the vibrant, this is pirate life, it reminded me of that.
Yeah, and that was like kind of overarching. This whole thing feels very much like they're trying to take parts of a lot of different stuff, which it happens in two ways. Either happens very tropey and you get a mess of junk that is nostalgic but not really good, or you get something that really does a good job of keying off of all of those different sources. So there's a lot of Goonies in this. There's a lot of Treasure Island in this. There's a lot of Peter Pan and Hook in this. There's
Flight of the Navigator.
Yes.
In there too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's all in a way that it's like, it's also not that. It's not any of those things. Yeah. And it's not like they took a sewing machine and made a Frankenstein out of those things. Right. It very much is sort of establishing itself as its own sort of lost in space, pirates, kids adventure into the unknown and treasure planet thing. And I don't know, it's maybe I have too much of like a wonder spectacles on because I've just been beaten up so much by Star Wars content lately that I'm like, yay, it's something I don't have any problems with.
That's a nice pivot, Robert, not to put that on your plate, but I'm going to do it anyway. But because I think this is a good moment to talk about this because, like we were talking before we started recording that, just because the last episode of Secrets of Star Wars I was on was one of the early episodes, unpacking like episode 2 or 3, I think of Acolyte. Mm-hmm. And, and it's, I joked with my wife earlier. I said, the old adage, like in polite conversation, you should never bring up politics, religion, or the acolyte.
Me and Robert have hashed this one out. If you want to hear us, go to an earlier episode. Secrets of Star Wars.
I think I'm the only one on the Secrets of Star Wars crew who genuinely liked the Acolyte.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Patrick, we hashed this out and it was like, it hit me in a place where I was looking for stories like the Acolyte was telling. And you were not. And I think most Star Wars fans were not. And it disappoints me that my big disappointment about the Acolyte is that it was so clearly set up to continue in a second season and then it got axed completely.
Oh yeah.
And that, I would have liked to see where they go with it, but I completely understand why, and I completely understand why this show is, I was looking at like Rotten Tomatoes and they're like, this is the best reviewed Star Wars show at least since The Mandalorian, arguably in the whole Disney era. And but it's grabbing all of the things that it said, here are a bunch of things that we all like. and we're going to tie them into Star Wars. And like you said, Patrick, it's doing a great job of wearing its influences on its sleeve without being controlled by those influences. And as I said earlier in the episode, my one fear about the show is that it's just going to be, a fun time, just enough nostalgia to keep you going, just enough action adventure to keep those, what did you call them, Patrick? Your what glasses? Your
wonder glasses.
Your wonder glasses. It's definitely got that sense of wonder going in spades. I'm here for sense of wonder plus that deeper meaning and themes that Star Wars so often touches on, and I'm hoping it shows up. I'm hoping that the seeds that I'm seeing there are going to sprout.
This is interesting because I know I keep saying interesting, and they tell you shouldn't say that when you're recording, but it is genuinely interesting. It's
super
fascinating, intriguing. It's intriguing.
All our listeners are really interested right now.
They're really interested. Yeah, if you're not interested,
super invested.
Yes,
what other I words can we come up with?
Invested. Yeah, but what's really, I think, compelling. There we go. It's very compelling. Yeah. I didn't expect to make this connection here, but when a while back I was on one of the Secrets of Movies and TV shows breakdowns for Interstellar, and what was funny was I volunteered for it because I really liked that movie, and then in watching it and then discussing it, by the end of it, I kind of liked it less, but what's funny about that is that that can happen in these great conversations. I think about when you really bat it around, you're like, on second thought, I'm not sure about that. But one thing that really I think was an important connection, funny enough, in that discussion that I see possibly, in the background here, is if you look at and have you guys both seen that?
Interstellar?
Yeah. Interstellar.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
As
it's 10 years old, so
I have some problems. Yeah. But otherwise.
Well, right. But he says, there's a scene where, much like with M. Night Shyamalan movies, where sometimes I think, the movie, in my opinion, is it's more about the relationships than any of the other sort of outward things that you might think it's about going into it, and when there's that scene near the beginning, when you're just kind of getting a real feel, that dystopian thing, right, in a different sort of way, right, Patrick? But they're sitting on the porch. It's John Lithgow is like his father-in-law, I think, and there's Matthew McConaughey and him are having a beer on the porch, and there's been some trouble with his kids at school and stuff, his daughter, and it's just something Matthew McConaughey, he's giving voice to this perennial frustration that this we're missing something of our humanity here. And he's not just talking about himself. He's talking like the species. He's like, here we are. It's just, I get it. Like I'm doing the thing. I'm doing this, all the farming we have to do. We have this global issue. There's these issues and the politics of it, whatever it might be. Yeah, got it. But we are more than that. And where is that? And we're explorers, and there's that frustration that he feels, that, he feels alone in that. And I feel like Wim has some of that here, and I think that's with any of these stories where we're wonder, I think you can definitely force it, I imagine, where, like you're saying, Robert, where it's just, it doesn't feel organic or just feels like it's kind of shoehorned in there. But I think I guess what I'm wondering about is, what do you guys think it is about things like The Goonies and E.T. and Flight of the Navigator and Treasure Island, that impulse for not so much nostalgia as if I'm trying to ignore or pretend that there aren't, serious issues or something in my life, but, something that's kind of beckoning to me, right, to kind of go off on this adventure. What do you think that is? I feel there's probably a faith connection there too.
I mean,
is it the fact that we know we're not meant for just this world, right? It's
You look like you have something to say, Patrick. Go for it.
I mean, I could always talk.
We're all just thinking, yeah, please.
I think it's part of the impulse, right? And part of the basic impulsive structure of being human because we are in a dislocated relationship with our creator, and we have the impulse to seek, love, goodness, beauty. There's another one. I can't remember it all of a sudden.
Truth.
Yeah, truth.
Yeah.
And so we're always in search of those things, and the only place we get those in perfection is through God. And so there is always this impulse to go out and do and adventure. And when we find ourselves in a place where we are stuck in a plan, and we're not in that mode of searching or in that mode of adventuring or stretching ourselves or going out, if we're just staying in our safe place, right? Because you have your safe circle, and then you have outside of that is the unknown. And if you go into the unknown a little bit, it's scary, but that's how you grow. And if you go too far, then it's terrifying, and you run back to your safe space, unless the door closes on you and hyperspaces you out of the barrier. And that's, that impulse to go off and make something of yourself or to be something is ultimately, I think, always tied back to that search for the creator, is to ultimately what we've been set up to is to reunite with the creator. Yeah. And I think the stories that involve giving into that impulse in some way or another are always going to be compelling in some manner or fashion. And typically you've always got at least two characters involved. One is the guy or gal who's going to go out and go on the adventure, and the other is the one that's going to try and hold him back. And both of those characters
Wendell.
are right. And you get Wendell and you get Neil, but
also Fern as
Neil
well.
Neil.
Fern,
right.
They're all just us, right? It's just like this, and we all fall to one side or another depending on where we are in our life and what adventure we just got done with and which ones we're dreading going out and doing next. But that's all of us, right? We're all sometimes Neil, we're all sometimes Wendell, and sometimes we're both at the same time. Should I, shouldn't I kind of a deal. And I think for most of us, our grand adventures are not nearly as dramatic. Like, I'm not going to be hyperspacing across the universe anytime soon. I hope. Maybe I don't hope. I don't know.
Well, that's even like Neil's line. I love the delay on it. When Wim's like, haven't you ever wanted to go on a real adventure? And he's just like what?
Right.
Like he's like, what?
And I love the line you get when they turn the ship back on and that green button is just blinking there, and you hear over the comm, "Don't touch anything," and he's just staring at it.
Yes. Yeah.
Like in the foreground, and he moves and he stops and like how could you possibly have more of a just obvious in your face, like, this is the moment, like just flash. Like, oh gosh.
Well, and there's that later moment when he opens up the switch and reaches out for it, and SM-33 says, "Don't touch that. Never ever touch that." That's going to go off sometime, probably in the second to last or last episode.
It's the self-destruct. It's the don't cross the streams equivalent, right?
Exactly.
It's another 80s movie.
It'll probably be Neil who has to push the button.
What did Egon say? He's like, there's definitely a very, very slim chance we'll survive. Okay, I'll take that.
But I think you make a great point, Patrick, that it's about that recognition that the world is not as it was intended to be, and that we are intended for something more than this world. And so there is that impulse to stretch out. And at the same time, like every virtue, there's also the danger of making of chasing the adrenaline rush, of chasing the transgressiveness of it, chasing the selfish aspect of it, that I want to feel this excitement. And this is the whole, it's the virtue of courage, right? Of fortitude. Yeah. You on the one hand, you have timidity, and on the other hand, you have recklessness, and the virtue is in the mean. It's in the recognizing what is the true good that we're called to, and putting that good again above all other lesser goods, even at times my own safety. And I definitely get the sense that we're going to see that arc in Wim and Neil, and maybe in a different way in the girls.
I really hope we get the arc with the girls, because it's so much modern media shortchanges the female characters and does not give them their growth arcs, and it's so disappointing. Like, it's just like, why are you robbing these perfectly good characters out of their growth arcs? Because they have to be weak at some point in order to grow. So I think, to me, that is probably the most worrisome thing, is that we won't get those arcs at all. And then if we do, it'll only be the boys who get it.
Well, it's interesting, because there it is again. It really is. I put down here when I was this was one of the notes I actually wrote when I was watching it, because this really struck me as a high school teacher and someone who's, well, the note I wrote down was, I said, is this a commentary? Like, when they were in the school, I said, is this a commentary on progressive education? I put this big question mark down, because this is like totally, firing on all cylinders with me. And the notes I put down was something to the effect of, basically social utility versus inculcating some kind of wonder or awe, but also, growth and virtue, right? The reality that education, whether it's in the real world or in Star Wars, shouldn't just be strictly utilitarian. There's a utilitarian aspect to it, but is that all it's for? And what's neat was, as it went on, it kind of, I saw, like, their classroom's nice enough. Like, it's reminiscent of the classroom that little Grogu got to join in on, right? When he's eating those little blue chips or whatever, and then throws up in the ship. It's interesting. It's this, like, I guess if you compare it to that, it looks pretty similar, but in another way, it's not that different from maybe Camino. Right. I mean, or maybe like I made a note of it here. I forgot my character names. Oh, remember Cyril Karn in Andor, when he just totally blows it on Alferic's mission. Unfortunately, like, it all falls apart and he gets kind of recycled and he's looking for work, and they just kind of have him, doing some completely menial task in the sea of God knows how many people. Very similar to Dr. Pershing, right? When he's got his assignment in the New Republic. So you see this thing coming up where, like, everybody's got a part to play in the great work, right? But where's the room within that for this sense of adventure? And so you feel that tension. And I just thought that's a potentially important, discussion point there too. What is the New Republic? Although I'm sure we'll get into that too. Is this even the New Republic that they're part of? Because that's a whole other thing now.
Well, the title crawl, not really a crawl. It was, fade in, fade out. But did say, after the fall of the Empire, the New Republic has been maintaining order, except for the pirates. Right. So we know that like, in terms of objective time, insofar as there is such a thing. Thank you, Einstein. In terms of objective time, we are in the New Republic era. But it's clear that this planet is stuck in the Old Republic era, and maybe knows nothing of the Empire, which is really plausible. I mean, they don't have to have been separated all that long. I mean, if you think about it,
because the Empire only lasted about 20 years or so.
It's basically from when Luke was born until he became a Jedi. Like that's the length of the
25
Empire.
years.
Which is roughly from where we are now back to the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you think about that span of time,
less time than Cuba. under Castro.
Right. Exactly.
Well, and honestly, at the time we're recording this, this is like Assad regime just fell in Syria, and so these idea of like, you have this generational sort of thing, and it's easy for people to be like, oh, it's always going to be this way. Well, things change, but I'm so super curious though about what, like, I think it's pretty obvious they're setting up here that whatever the ship is that they're on, there's some sort of connection to that and this treasure, because I don't know how fast the skeletons in Star Wars decompose, but I was like, well, these guys are like pretty decomposed skeletons, that have been there for a while,
I want to comment on that, because there are rats on that ship, right? And if there are rats in there, right, because rats get into everything. Then they have a food source, right? And that means the people ran out at some point, but it means they can get in and out of the ship. So there's somewhere in the ship that is not structurally right. There's structural integrity is not whole on that ship.
Some doors open.
There's somewhere the rats got in and out, and I'm curious as to whether that is still a problem. Like, I'm wondering if they're going to find it someday. Like, we just can't go in that compartment. Why? Because it's open to space.
Oh my gosh! Well, and that I missed the little detail. Well, I'm trying to backtrack here. So his dad gives him the money. Let's look at some clues maybe here for a second about their situation. Because the neighborhood, like at first somebody pointed out, back to the Amblin thing. Like it looks like Elliot's neighborhood or whatever from E.T. or it's any of those Spielberg era, kind of, post World War II by a few decades, right? The little the nuclear family homes, right? And
it's almost Edward Scissorhands, and it's
yes, right.
Yeah,
and his dad gives him money. I didn't pay much attention to the credits. I wasn't looking at them real closely, but they did, they really did zoom in on that New Republic credit, the only one in the the vault on the ship. These ones don't look like that, so there was that detail. But when he said totally wizard, I just laughed because I was like, yeah, thank you. Like, it's so thank you. But I hadn't made the connection that like they're still saying that there, but are they saying it anywhere else? And someone else brought that up. I was listening to somewhere on YouTube or something. I was like, so is this like a cutoff?
What's the other Stinko? Those Stinko boys. Yeah.
I'm like, because I have to go back and look. I don't know what what Fern's mother said. I forget exactly. Like, did she say like the help we're giving the New Republic? I thought she did. I thought she said that.
No, she just said the Republic.
She said great work.
Republic. There's no Republic, okay. Because there wouldn't be old. Okay, right? You'd never call it the Old Republic while you were there.
That's a neat little detail because they did. Yeah, in the prequels, like they were calling it the Republic.
Yes,
and the only old and new distinction makes sense after the new is replaced the Empire. So that's. If that's part of it, that's a good detail.
Yeah, I'm very much hoping that they are in the occlusion of the Sith from the 1985 Droids cartoon, part of space, which is semi cut off from the rest of the galaxy, and that this was a crashed pirate ship, and we'll somehow learn the old pirate was named Mungo Baobab. But there's a lot of hope in there in me. I'm like, is that Atten? Was that Atten from that show? It's like, no, it wasn't. It wasn't one of the show's planets they visited, but I was really hopeful. But I am kind of thinking,
is that more of a stretch than the circus holo from Holiday Special being canon? It's basically the Star Wars universe's version of Bluey or like, Paw Patrol. Like, I love that. Like she gets the little kids on the couch and she's running and she gives them a little snack bowl and pats them on the head. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
She has to do laundry. Like that was.
I love how they're just slowly bringing everything from the Holiday Special into canon. Like over the years, it's just all coming in.
I don't know. It'd be fun to catalog. That might be a fun show for Secrets of Star Wars of just like, let's catalog where they're doing this. Because the first one I remember was Horatio Sanz's Mithril character mentioning Life Day in Mandalorian, the first episode. That was where I was like,
I mean, technically Boba Fett is the very first one because he gets brought on the Empire. But
that's true.
I mean, that's so long ago. Like, but yeah, Life Day was like where it started. And then you have the thing that the Mandalorian rides. I don't even remember what those are called. The Ugnaught teaches him to ride. Those are from that special too, from the thing with Boba Fett. So I feel like it's all going to be in there someday, and I'm a little scared about the VR set part. Where
I was going to say, I was that Dionne Warwick or whatever? I'm like, let's not do that. Or the was it Harvey? Harvey Korman is like a space Julia Childs.
Yes.
Not. Let's just
can we not pick and choose bring that part in?
Yeah, not cool. Oh my gosh. Well, speaking of cultural artifacts, so Steve Urkel's in Star Wars now, so that's cool. With Julia White as
that was him. I didn't look it up, but that was him. Okay,
it's
with
absolutely Julia White
or monocle.
Yeah, speaking of cyborgs, but what his character name is Gunter, and I'm just like waiting. Look, I'm not telling John Watts what to do, but there's no way that I get Jaleel White on that set for that show and miss the opportunity to just at some point have his character say, "Did I do that?" Have him he accidentally blows something up, something. There's so many ways they can make that happen. I'm just dying for please do that. Yeah. So that's more 90s, I guess, than 80s, but still, oh gosh.
What they could have him do, and it would be a double reference, is to have him ask, "Do you have any cheese?"
Yes,
because that's also I can't remember which pirate show it is, but I do think it is Treasure Planet. It's "Do you have any cheese, boy?"
Any cheese, boy. That would be.
That's one of the first things he says to Jim, if I remember correctly, when the old man who warns him about the cyborg. Or not, sorry, I'm mixing Treasure Planet up now.
Oh my gosh!
But either way, if he says it, the show.
Well, and what? Well, let me ask you guys about the pirate thing specifically here, because I was in some of the research. I guess they were, because I think it's easy. You could say, well, Treasure Island or I got Pirates of the Caribbean vibe, which again we don't have much to go off of with Jude Law's character here, but we can talk about him here in a bit too. But I can see, just some of the little hints from the trailers, which I didn't watch many trailers. This time I wanted to kind of go in a little bit fresh. But one of the, very endearing things about Jack Sparrow, right, was he's this lovable character, but you wouldn't trust him with anything. He's very, very, he's always himself, right to the end. Practically, that's just enough trustworthiness that you can work with him, but he's a pirate. It's like Hondo, which if they miss the opportunity to put Hondo in this, I don't know. I mean, is
Hondo still alive? That's the question.
Well, because he's part of the whole deal down at Galaxy's Edge. They have him in there with the Falcon and stuff, so he's around.
Okay.
Somewhere, but anyway,
so I'm jumping around. What Survivor? I mean, he really does.
I think so. Yeah.
If I'm going to bet on anybody.
Yeah. So what do you? I mean, was there anything in particular about the pirate stuff that really jumped out at you guys, or that you just even in your own interests or reading or movies you've watched, something you thought was just kind of cool or special? I mean, they said 1940s serials were a big part of this too, so they were kind of expanding their material, I guess.
Sure. I mean, the original, popular pirate story, Treasure Island, was also a kid stumbles upon, secret treasure thing and goes on an adventure with pirates. And so I kind of love that this is, if we're going to do a pirate show, have it be about a kid, or in this case, a bunch of kids. And I think that's a part of pirate movies and pirate lore that I don't know. I want to save room for more adult pirate stories, but I love the idea that pirate stories are in some kind of very historical rooted way kids stories. And I like that they're that's the approach they're taking. and they're growing up stories. They are stories about, discovering that not every adult can be trusted.
That's a really good point.
That I do have power over my choices in life, and I can do things that affect people around me, and that every once in a while it's important for the adults to pay attention to me. And at the same time, boy, I need to find some trustworthy adults because I am in way over my head. All of those things kind of coming together are that's part of what makes Treasure Island great. It's part of what I think this show is really getting right. I mean, we talked about the parents being, not the brightest bulbs in the pack. And that's definitely, I don't know if I would quite paint them that way, but they are definitely preoccupied. And I took that maybe more as a comment on the monolithic obsession of this society with the great work.
Yes.
Than like a comment about the character of the parents. But I don't know. I'm kind of getting away from the question about pirates and piracy and what's cool about it, but
that's a good point though.
But pirate movies are about being anti-establishment and countercultural in a lot of ways, and so there's that theme going on as well.
Yeah.
No, I like coming back to the parents though and the society, because something we see at play in that first episode is kind of the rebelliousness sort of you get from a lot of 80s into 90s movies, with kids and teenagers rebelling against the edifice of their parents and their, workaday stuff and everything. The other couple of kids showing up outside of Fern's house with their speeder bike, making fun of her and saying she'll never be like that is so like, you could have replaced all them with a hot rod and and her and Fern, and you would have been like in an Archie comic from the 50s. It's just so part of Americana, I think. And I don't know if we'll actually ever get to see it, but I'm very curious as to how they deal with this as part of that society, because they have to have a way to deal with this thing, right? And is it sort of the Truman Show? Well, everything's already been explored. You have to stay here, right? We're in this bubble. No one goes beyond the barrier, even though that turns out to be like a lie. Like there's no actual barrier. Right. The fact they'd never seen stars, that was huge.
That was very cool. Yeah.
And that is somewhat, I think it's a small and really subtle commentary on the modern generation of children. And, myself included, right? I grew up in suburbs. I see stars, but it's like, 10. If I ever drive out to, beyond the barrier of the Beltway and get out really into the country, I can actually see the stars. But how often do I do it? How often my kids seeing the stars? And that point where Smee points out and says, well, which of those is that at? And the kids are just like, oh no, like I don't even know where to start.
We're really lost.
That was another great moment. Yeah.
What the scene, the most callback scene I think in the entire movie though was the keys when they're trying to send the rat to go get the keys.
Yes.
It's the Pirates of the Caribbean ride.
It's Jack with the dog.
Yeah. Well, even like before, it was just part of the ride. From the 70s. Trying to get the dog to get the keys. I was like, oh my gosh, they're doing it. They're really doing this.
Somebody compared it to a Baby Groot, which was good too, because which I think that's my favorite though, because it's just how long they drag that scene out, But yeah, I mean, it's Robert about the parents. What jumped out at me is the something about the way his dad when he's waiting outside the office and he's going through the, flipping like crazy through the, the little data pad, trying to find like, the Jedi temple.
Right.
Which was another, I think, clue too, because the sort of ubiquity, he kind of gets laughed at for wanting to be a Jedi, but he doesn't get any like, you traitor to the Emperor, or there's none of that. Like, there's still a very positive, like, just,
and everybody like knows
oh, yeah,
the Jedi are.
Right,
they're
Jedi
just
thing.
Like,
there's kids playing as Jedi, which brings up another question: of what do they do with Force-sensitive children? Because it used to be you ship them off.
Right. Yeah. So what do they? Yeah. He's never seen a Jedi before. So how do they? But no one comes to the planet. Okay. Why? But when his dad says to him, he tells him about the test. Now you have to get 100%. There's no curve or whatever on it. And he says, the way he finishes that when he says, I have to get back to work. I can't quite deliver. Like the way he says the word work, it's just, it carried with it. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but it carried with it so much, priority, like over everything else, and we're seeing that. Like, I mean, that's kind of obvious the way the character, but there's just the way he delivered that line, I thought was especially like, that's the serious thing, and then that sad moment, I was genuinely sad when Wim's like, could you read me a bedtime story? And he's like, aren't you a little old for that? First he says no, and he has to turn around and like drive it home one more time. Right.
Yeah.
Aren't you a little old for that? So, yeah, I mean,
well, and it also struck me in the classroom, the teacher droid, the instructor droid is going through what at first sounds like absolute technobabble.
Right.
But on the second viewing, I realized he's talking about accounting.
Yeah, it's accounting and math.
Right.
I'm not
Fake
an accountant.
math,
I don't know if any of those are like actual accounting concepts, but he was talking about is currency management is what they're talking about. It's like there's
treasure.
Treasure. Yeah. Yeah. There's something deeply financial about what's and that's the only thing that seems to matter. Like they don't seem to have classes on anything beyond, mathematics, administration, business. It's all like
analysis.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm really hoping that they develop that. Like what is this great work that they're working on that is so intensely financial and that requires such isolation from the rest of the galaxy. I didn't get a chance to. Oh no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I didn't get a chance to pursue this, but one of the last things I came across in just the prep, there was somebody had mentioned that the great work phrase shows up in the High Republic a couple times. Now, I didn't get to pursue that, but I mean, that would make sense, if this society has somehow been cut off or isolated since, a little bit prior to the events of the prequels, because that would still be sort of the tail end of that High Republic era. And again, not the High Old Republic, but the High Republic, like it's the Republic, and
there were actually in the extended universe / Legends, there were 3 great works.
Okay,
and then that was kind of picked up, I guess in the High Republic works. I'm looking at Wikipedia now. It says. The Great Works, without a number, were a group of projects undertaken by the Galactic Republic under Supreme Chancellor Lina So. And I don't know much about Lina So. She held office from 234 BBY. So this is significantly before our time period, but she is the one who created the Starlight Beacon, which is such a major plot point in the High Republic stories. So it wouldn't surprise me if this is one of those giant public works projects of the High Republic.
Yeah, I'm just looking. so many different, so many fun. Is there something that we want to not miss going back to flesh out a little more? Is it, Patrick, you had something you want to?
Well, what's curious to me is that everybody in the encounter has heard of Ad-Aden, right? Everybody.
Yeah.
But they're all like,
most of them anyway. Kid. Yeah.
It's a legend. It doesn't exist. Like, it's this, and I think someone drops like
El Dorado. Yeah.
Right. The great treasure planet of Ad-Aden. Yeah. You're from there.
Yeah. Okay.
And I mean, you can tell a couple of them start to actually believe it after a certain point. But so the question in my mind is like, what is this place actually? And then what is the legend? And how do we get from one to the other?
The phrase they keep using is eternal treasure.
That's right, eternal
which
treasure.
Which is really interesting. It's not hidden treasure, it's eternal treasure, which is like, is this the source of like renewing wealth or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah, because that's a good point, because they wouldn't, right? Yeah, you'd think they wouldn't put it that way if it's just a place that has a lot of resources, right? Because it's a place that's a lot of resources. It's like back to Andor, like Cassian's home planet. They just go and strip the whole thing, and get like if it's Empire or if it's Republic, maybe they don't do it as dramatically, but yeah, just having a secret place where this eternal wealth. I don't know. That's very, very curious about where they're going to take that. I wanted to pivot here a little bit. Just probably won't go too long, this part of it, but what do you guys think of the music?
I was very glad that they did not continue using the like the translated 80s pop songs. That they used in the trailer. The Major Tom, and I was like, it was really fun. I liked the song.
Yeah,
it worked well, but it breaks my sense of the reality of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, it's too. It's like some people have criticized in season 2 of Mandalorian. When they had the I can't think of their name now. The squid dudes. Oh my gosh. Well, and then the Mon Calamar guys on that ship, that take Mando out to sea, and they're all wearing like wetsuits and stuff, and like, why? Like they're squids and they're it's like what, so there's just, I didn't make that big of a deal of that one, but I thought that's a good point. Why is he doing that? But
that's the music did have a very sort of 1980s. Slightly new wave. We're discovering how keyboards, what keyboards can do, feel to it.
Felt like there were some Williams beats in there, but I think we're past people trying to, mimic him or anything like that. And I don't know that even has ever really been an issue. I felt like it's been pretty unique.
The one moment when Jude Law's character was levitating the key.
Yeah.
And it started off, it had sort of a little introduction before it got to the da 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 da.
Yeah, they slipped the Skywalker theme a little bit of there.
Yeah, just a little bit, but not quite, because it was like Dead Man's Tale version of the Skywalker theme. Because of the I want to say it's the fourth note is a different note. And I was like, what is like, and it's killing me. And when I'm thinking about it, but it's like, it's like a sea shanty pirate version of the Skywalker theme.
Which appropriately enough.
I was like, oh, they did that so well.
Well, and it's, hang on a second here. My light just shut off. I think it's on a timer. There we go. The composer, it's Mick, I think it's Giacchino, I think it's pronounced. But he's the name looked familiar to me, but I guess it's really cool because he's the son of Michael Giacchino, who's did among other things, what was it? Up. Here's the list here. Up, Ratatouille. I was getting, so the Batman, Jurassic World, like, J.J. Abrams, Star Trek, so all these different films, but of course, Rogue One. And I was like, that's why, like, that's the reason. And so, and it was neat because Wikipedia had an entry. So this is, again, the composer of Skeleton Crew's father, goes pretty deep with Star Wars. It says he also composed the music for Star Tours: The Adventure Continues. He played FN 3181 in Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, and a Sith Trooper in The Rise of Skywalker, and provided additional voices in Rogue One. So Star Wars family tradition here. So that's pretty cool. But yeah.
Sorry, I said Dead Man's. I meant Yo-Ho. The Yo-Ho song.
Yes.
The Skywalker theme and mixed it with Yo-Ho. Were the notes we were getting. Sorry. I apologize. With
it being a kid's show,
to get these things right.
It is. It really is. I want other people to hear what I hear in my head.
Well, I do appreciate that with it being kids, as the center here, they did not, at least yet, find a bottle of rum somewhere around in the pirate ship. Although, Wim was drinking green milk at the beginning, which sparks a lot of questions about, like, do they have those sea cow things on this planet? Like, what? I was like, can we just not? Let's not go back to that. What did you guys think of this? So I'm going to go to SM33 here for a sec, and just we've talked about him a little bit, but I thought it was funny with Nick Frost, like this connection with Shaun of the Dead and Simon Pegg, and because there's some you're getting these partnerships in Star Wars between crossovers into different things, which is kind of fun. So, but I really got a kick out of him where I felt like he was fresh and familiar at the same time, but not familiar within Star Wars. Like, I felt like the familiarity was all the pirate stuff. Which I thought was kind of cool, but he looks a little reminiscent of, or reminiscent to, oh my gosh, from Rogue One. I'm losing it now.
I can't think. K2SO?
Okay, yeah, K2SO. I thought I don't know if I don't think it's the same model, but it looks pretty similar. That was what jumped out at me.
Looks like a predecessor model.
Yeah. And I was thinking there were some
older. He's older, yeah.
There were some combat droids, I want to say in some episodes of Rebels that it reminded me of.
Yeah. That sounds familiar.
But
even Grievous's bodyguards. Do you remember those guys?
Yeah.
They had kind of a similar look to them, although they were always wearing those, like, I don't know, shawls, whatever, like rag clothes.
Oh yeah.
But I think underneath they were very similar in my mind.
Yeah, is that the I was trying to find it here. You talk the Grievouses.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's
from the Clone Wars. And
yes.
Did they appear in Revenge of the Sith?
Yeah, they were in the very beginning.
Okay. Yes,
when
they're
they
in the
stormed
ship.
the bridge.
Yeah, from the cockpit.
Right.
Or the bridge, yeah. Yeah, that rings a bell. For some reason, I tried to search them on Wikipedia, and all it brought me to was like all these like retro action figures on Amazon. I need to close that out, otherwise I'll start buying them.
$400 later.
That's how I ended up. Well, thankfully, that's how I ended up with my Elon, Sleaze Bagano action figure, the Death Stick guy from Episode 2. Which he's on the wall back here just because I don't know anyone else who has that.
That is a deep cut
on their wall.
Oh man,
it comes with the bar that he stands at too. I was just like, what in the world?
Wow.
You really want to go home and rethink your life.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely the case. Oh my gosh. That's the ultimate deep cut right there. It's like, that's, I bought this and then you guess what I did next.
Went home and I
rethought my life. Oh gosh.
Maybe that can be the Star Wars version of Memento Mori, It's like, remember death and decay and cease from sin. It's like, you need to go home and rethink your life.
Oh my gosh. I did want to ask you guys before I forget it's been a long time since I read Huck Finn, but somebody said that there was a little Huck Finn vibe off the, like when Fern and DB tricked the boys into digging it out for them.
Tom Sawyer.
Tom Sawyer, yeah.
Or is that Tom Sawyer? Okay, yeah, because I couldn't remember the exact moment. But
yeah.
It's the best thing ever.
Right.
It's the most fun you can have in a day.
Yeah, that's right. And I love that, like, as they're digging it out, like, those girls are so dumb, and then, like, how it zooms back, and she's like, these boys are so dumb.
Yeah, so dumb. So good. Yeah. No, they got the chemistry just spot on with these child actors. They're great. I love them all.
Well, and the wisdom thing, I think we mentioned it in passing earlier, but I don't know if there was anything you guys caught in particular for KB that jumped out at you where, but I think for me, it was just that little moment where they're sitting there watching the boys dig out, and KB just, she's having fun, but she, has that courage to kind of tell her friend in that moment, you can be a little nicer to them, or just, you're a little mean, just that little bit of kid conscience, which, for kids, that's hard for any of us to do, but I'm teaching high school, and that's not easy for the student to do, right? Tell your peer that they went too far,
Do either of you think that maybe Fern is going to end up as a villain?
Oh, I don't know. Huh.
I think that's definitely.
I think they could play with that. Yeah.
I think if we're gonna Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe this, right?
Okay.
She is the most likely to betray her siblings to the White Witch, right? I think out of the four of them, I think in a scenario where she gets kind of a ticket home or something she really, really wants, but she maybe has to leave them in a lurch, that she's the most likely out of the four of them. So I do think that's possible. I don't know if they'll do it though. But
Wim is the most likely to fall for the Turkish delight, though.
Yes, very much so. But Wim has that like too dumb to be evil thing going for him. I don't know if dumb's necessarily the right word. I want
a T-shirt that says that.
I'm too dumb to be evil.
Oh goodness, no! But when you said it, I totally got what you mean. Yeah, it's well, and isn't it like I wonder? So Jude Law's character, because I did want to kind of build up to him. This might be a good connection because we just don't know yet. But Jod, which is funny because Jod and Jude, it's going to be interchangeable. I just realized it's still different. But what Patrick, what you just said there makes me think. I can imagine a scenario where, like if he is like, oh, they trust him, oh, he's a Jedi, all this kind of stuff. But as we find out later on, if it's revealed that he really is that pirate captain, right? Or he's a pirate, that could be a total, sort of as he and her dialogue, or he starts to see in her, maybe some pirate kind of qualities. I think that could definitely be an interesting development.
I could definitely see it going that way, especially if there's any kind of any sort of apprenticeship kind of thing going on, right? Because she's declared herself captain, right? And so he has kind of been in there.
And she liked the way she declared it too,
right?
She was really like, I killed. Yeah, that was so good.
Yeah.
Well, she's always making up these. She is a liar. She is like a habitual liar. And storyteller.
And programmed her droid to lie to her mother.
Which was so good. But she did freak out a little bit when she's yelling. She's like, why did you bring us to this pirate port? And he's like, we're pirates. And she's like, what?
No, we're not. We're
so she didn't really seem ready for that reveal, but it's there now.
She is not after adventure though. Rather, she's not after this adventure. She wants to win that bike race.
Yeah.
And,
why? In one sense, it's like, well, it's kind of obvious, but well, maybe not.
I mean, did you
there's
see
reasons
that guy?
And there's reasons. Yeah.
I mean, I'd want to shove his face in the dirt too.
He reminded me of Adam Driver. I had some other people said that too. There was a little Adam Driver vibe to him. I was like, is that? So the timeline doesn't work out. There was part of me that was like, please be young Kylo. Please be young. No, but
well, this is 9 ABY. So yeah, he's a little old.
He's a little too
yeah. To be
I
Ben
think this is
Skywalker, rather.
That's right.
Or Ben
Doesn't
Solo,
canon sort of
rather.
establish that he was like a year after or so, a year after Endor, so he'd only be like 8, something like that. But
something like that.
That's right.
Something like that. Something like that.
That's too much of a deal. We do like a whole show on the age of Ben Solo.
I'm super curious as to what Jaw, okay, I assume that Jaw's using force powers, right? And I don't know, maybe there's some other way he's pulling it off.
Yeah.
Like we saw a pretty good trickster fake Jedi in
that was so fun.
Obi-Wan.
What was it? Obi-Wan.
Yeah. From my perspective, the absolute best part of that show.
Roll. Yeah, he was spot on.
But I don't know if he is that, there's a lot of questions to be begged, like why escape from the prison now? Like, if you could do that all along, how come you didn't do it before?
Right.
And what is the kid? How do the kids change the situation? And so what he is the biggest question in my head, because if he does have force powers, then is he a self-taught force user? Is he a former Jedi? If he is, he's kind of young. Like, he would have been, fairly young if he had been part of the whole Jedi
It'd have to be
order.
like a Kanan Jarrus kind of thing, but he's still, this is later than that too.
Right.
So,
is he some sort of dark side force user? Like, I don't know. I'm just very, very, very curious about that character. I also am very curious if they're going to try and give him his own arc, or if he's going to be flat.
It's too bad there are no more shows in this series, and we'll never find out answers to these questions.
They're just all wrapped up there.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I always struggle with things like this, because like there's so much, like I would potentially.
I know we know nothing, but let's wildly speculate.
Well, see, I kind of stopped doing that after Book of Boba Fett, because like I was part of so many speculative conversations about that show where I came away from it like there were at least 6 or 7 ideas that came out of those conversations that we all thought were better than what ended up on the screen. And we're like, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I felt really disappointed. But it is, we have, I think, if the release schedule doesn't change, they're doing 1 episode now, through the finale. So, we won't have any more paired up. So it'll be, unfortunately, I guess one big question I have is we'll see, there's these, I don't know if I buy into this, but, sometimes there are those episodes that seem like those filler episodes, as they call them, like the one with Jack Black and Lizzo, like,
which was another utopian-ish society, right? Like that's the closest analog I have to this at place, and I'm like,
funny enough,
like they seem to have gone we can use droids for all the manual labor, so we're going to do the hedonism route,
right?
Whereas the folks,
these guys are like extreme efficiency and
right, and so like
work ethic, and
it's very good.
That's what's on the table.
And again, like what are machines good at? They're good at calculations and mathematics and like a lot of repetitive, like, you would think droids would be excellent accountants. Why are they training humans to be accountants?
I
have questions.
There is something funny we're starting to see emerge from a lot of the AI systems, is they are not as good at brute force math. They will get stuff wrong, like brute force math stuff, like stuff that any computer made ever until the last 10 years would get right in a quarter of a second.
Wow.
The AIs will sometimes get wrong because
interesting,
they don't and using the word think is not how they work, but they don't compute the same way. And so I could kind of see that with droids.
Yeah, because they are not they do have, well, some more than others, but they do have personalities. So there is some attempt in the design, right, for them to be more engaging, right? Just in the way that they function than just some mainframe or something.
Yeah.
Until they also try to retcon it and claim that L3 is the computer on the Millennium Falcon.
Right.
But that's all, which was like, that's a little bit of a stretch. Like, okay. Look, fair enough. But yeah, no, it's
which, I mean,
this is fun. It's going to be,
it gets back to Smee and just how well done of a droid. Like, and that's one of the things I think Disney has done well with every single show, no matter how much I didn't like it. I'm not going to say how bad it was because that's a subjective thing, although some of them were objectively bad.
Right.
But how much I didn't like them, they all had the best droid ever. Somehow,
they really do.
They all had it didn't matter which show it was. Obi-Wan had the little droid that Leia had, which was just the cutest thing ever.
Yes.
We had
B2EMO and Andor.
B2EMO.
B2EMO, yeah.
Such an adult droid. Lying wears me out, so I'm just gonna go to sleep.
Yeah.
Well, and back to K, I still, in my opinion, I'm still in the camp that I think, at least film wise, the best thing that ever happened to Star Wars post Disney buyout was Rogue One. That's just my take in terms of the films. And K2SO, I just love him. I love him, and every time I watch it, like the scene when they're, about to approach Scarif, and he makes that really drastic comment about all them being blown into the vacuum of space, and and he's like, I'll be okay. I'll survive. I can survive in space.
That's right.
It's like, the rest of you will be dead. One is helped by you. Yeah, it's like, yes, you're correct. No one's helped by what you're saying right now. Like, just perfect. The comedic beat. But with that's a good point. I think of just, how do you come up with something new? And because I feel like, like this guy is like completely just his own thing. And one of my favorites was, I think somebody, the person I was listening to some podcast, they were saying that like remember those shields he had when he had that fight? And they were saying, oh, he can even heat them up. I said, no, my read on it was they're getting heated up by the laser blast.
Like, which is right. Like, that's a second level combat tactic. It's like, I'm using my own enemy's weapons against them.
Right.
Go ahead. Keep shooting from my shield. I'm going to burn you with. Like, that's like, there's a lot of logic that has to go into those kind of functions.
That was, I felt like it just felt so real at that moment. It was like, I could smell the fur. That thing getting like that was just such a good fight, and it was short and and of course the kids are just like in the middle of it, like they do not belong there, like that classic scene. But which reminded me a little bit of like even something like the in the Lord of the Rings movies, like some of those moments where the hobbits are just kind of like, whoa, there's just chaos
and that's
around them. And it's like, you get that visual of like, these guys don't even in any way belong here. And it's so perfect.
That's what I think we're going here. Cause I think we've just met Strider, right?
Right.
And that was Jod.
Yeah.
We got our 4 hobbits. You can make what relations to which one's which in your own mind, but
Strider or Long John Silver.
Yeah, right. Like that's
what's fun.
Yeah, Long John Strider.
And are we gonna? And I think we got to get a Gandalf too at some point. This has to be some sort of prophetic figure. But that'll be That's so. Well, I think, guys, we're coming up here on our time. Is there anything else? Again, these first 2 episodes, we got a long way to go, but which one of my references, I don't think it came up. There was something Never-Ending Story-esque about some of this to me too at some points, which is maybe a bit of a stretch, but just that same era of the weirdness, in some cases. And that reminds me of the line when he, I quote this sometimes. I'm maybe the only person on the planet who does, because it's just such a bad line. But when the kid, when Bastion's up in the attic reading the book, And he gets excited and he grabs his apple and he starts like getting ready to eat it. And he's like, no, not too much. We still have a long way to go. And it's like, that's my deep cut. That's my deepest cut of the night of like, yeah. So there's plenty more to talk about. We got, weeks to do it. So anything else you guys want to share? Any, final thoughts before we close out?
Just that I am here for this ride, and I'm looking forward to where it takes us.
Yeah, that's the key to me of a good show. In my mind, is I'm like, I am excited for that. It's not just I want to see the next episode because I want to see where the storyline goes, or I'm interested in this character or whatever. No, I am like excited for the next episode. Like yeah.
You're invested.
I am invested.
my routine used to be, and they've changed when they release them and what times and all that kind of stuff. But my routine used to be, because I'm on the East Coast, I wouldn't stay up late to see the release. It was coming out in the middle of the night or whatever. I would get up super early, pull this little like armchair up right in front of the TV, like where my grandfather always told me not to sit because my eyes will go cross or something. But like that kind of like right in there. And a cup of coffee, like make that my morning routine on those days. And I said, like, I might be doing that again here soon. We'll see. Instead of just catching it when I can, or like, putting the kids to sleep or something and I'm on the phone, I like to get it on the screen, but all right. Well, thank you guys. That's it from us for this week. And now we'd like to hear from you, our listeners. What did you think about the premiere episodes of Skeleton Crew? What are you looking forward to or hoping to see as the show unfolds? And what other kinds of things might you like us to explore on future episodes of The Secrets of Star Wars? We had some ideas come up tonight, some serious, some maybe not so much. We'll see. So you could let us know anytime by emailing us over at starwars@sqpn.com. Reaching out to us on our social media pages, or by leaving a comment on our channel on the StarQuest Discord server, which you can find over at sqpn.com/Discord. Be sure to follow The Secrets of Star Wars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your favorite podcast app, or on the StarQuest YouTube channel. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, on the X formerly known as Twitter at SQPN, or on Instagram, where we can be found at StarQuest Network. And be sure to get your official Secrets of Star Wars merch, gear, whatever you want to call it, over at sqpn.com/merch. And as always, if you'd like to support StarQuest and this podcast, head over to sqpn.com/give today. We really appreciate your generosity, and you guys make this possible. So next up, Skeleton Crew episode 3. Until then, Robert King, thank you so much for joining me to share the secrets of Star Wars.
Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And Patrick Mason, thank you as well.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime. And once again, I'm Mike Creavey. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.